For centuries, the Mediterranean was treated as a prize, a space to be conquered, controlled, unified. Whoever dominated its waters, we're told, dominated history itself. Power seemed to flow naturally from its shores, as if the sea produced empires the way rivers produce silt. And yet, no empire that rose around the Mediterranean ever held it forever. This is not because they failed to seize it. Many did. It is because the very conditions that made power possible, there also placed strict limits on it. The Mediterranean did not simply create empires. It shaped how power could exist, expand, and eventually stall. This episode examines that pattern, not through a list of rulers or battles, but through the structure of the space itself and how authority learned to move within it. The Mediterranean is not an ocean. It is not open, endless, or uniform. It is enclosed, fragmented, broken into basins, peninsulas, islands, and narrow passages. From early antiquity onward, this geography encouraged connection. Short distances made travel feasible. Predictable winds made navigation repeatable. Coastlines invited settlement and exchange. Power could move. Ideas could travel. Goods could circulate. Empires emerged because coordination was possible. But coordination is not the same as control. Every advantage came with friction. The same fragmentation that allowed many societies to interact also prevented any single authority from fully absorbing the whole. Control had to be negotiated repeatedly, port by port, strait by strait. Expansion did not unfold across open plains. It curved around coastlines. It depended on fleets, supply chains, seasonal rhythms. Power in the Mediterranean was always conditional. Early maritime powers learned this quickly. Influence expanded through networks rather than blocks of territory. Authority followed trade routes more than borders. This produced empires that looked coherent from a distance but were uneven up close. Some regions were tightly integrated. Others remained loosely connected, bound more by habit than command. This unevenness was not a flaw, it was structural. The Mediterranean rewarded adaptability. It punished overextension. As empires grew, they encountered limits not at the edges of the map, but within the system itself. Maintaining fleets required resources that had to be constantly replenished. Ports demanded protection. Communication depended on speed and timing, not permanence. A storm could interrupt authority as effectively as resistance. Control had to be renewed. This created a particular style of power. Mediterranean empires tended to be flexible, pragmatic, and layered. Authority was often indirect. Local elites were incorporated rather than replaced. Customs were tolerated if they did not interrupt flow. Uniformity was costly. This flexibility allowed expansion, but it also constrained transformation. Empires could extend influence without fully reshaping the societies they touched. Power traveled lightly. This helped it spread. It also made it shallow in places. As long as exchange continued, the system functioned. When exchange slowed or fractured, cohesion weakened. The Mediterranean encouraged connection, but not total integration. Its geography fostered plurality. Multiple centers could exist at once. Rival hubs emerged naturally. No single capital could dominate every direction equally. Even at moments of apparent unity, the system retained its internal tensions. Authority depended on movement, on circulation, on maintaining balance among regions with different priorities and rhythms. This made Mediterranean power dynamic. It also made it vulnerable to disruption. When coordination faltered, fragmentation resurfaced quickly. Empires here rarely collapsed in a single moment. They thinned, they retreated, they reconfigured. Power did not vanish, it redistributed. This pattern repeated across centuries. Each new empire inherited not only routes and ports, but constraints. The sea connected them to past solutions and past limits. Belief often lagged behind reality. Rulers imagined total command. Geography enforced partial reach. The Mediterranean allowed power to grow, but only by accepting compromise. Attempts to impose uniform authority across its entire span encountered resistance not just from people, but from distance, timing, and scale. Governance became a constant negotiation with space itself. This negotiation shaped political imagination. Power was understood as stewardship of flow rather than possession of land. Control meant keeping systems moving, not freezing them. But this understanding carried its own consequences. Because authority relied on circulation, disruptions became existential threats. A blocked strait, a contested port, a breakdown in coordination. Fragility was built in. The Mediterranean did not tolerate stagnation. It rewarded responsiveness. Empires that adapted survived longer. Those that rigidified struggled. Yet adaptation has limits. As systems grow, they demand greater coordination. As coordination increases, flexibility decreases. This tension intensified over time. What began as a network became an apparatus. What was once responsive became procedural. The very mechanisms that sustained empire began to constrain it. This is not a moral failure. It is a structural one. Power scaled faster than the system could absorb complexity. The Mediterranean's geography had encouraged expansion through connection. It did not encourage simplification. Managing diversity required restraint. Managing scale required delegation. But delegation diluted authority. Control became layered, delayed, indirect. Belief in total dominance persisted, even as reality became more diffuse. This gap between belief and structure widened. Empires spoke the language of unity. The sea enforced multiplicity. This mismatch created pressure. Not dramatic pressure, but persistent strain. Over time, maintaining coherence required increasing effort for diminishing returns. The Mediterranean remained central, but it no longer guaranteed supremacy. As new routes emerged elsewhere, the system's advantages became relative rather than absolute. Yet the pattern endured. The Mediterranean did not stop producing power. It stopped producing unquestioned power. Authority had to share space with other centers, other flows. What had once been the heart of empire became one node among many. The limits were always there. They had simply been managed rather than removed. This invites a broader reflection. Power often appears to arise from geography, technology, or advantage. But these same conditions also define its boundaries. What enables expansion also defines how far it can go. The Mediterranean created empires by making coordination possible. It limited them by making total control impractical. The sea connected, but it also separated. It reduced distances while multiplying frontiers. Power could move, but it could not settle everywhere equally. This produced a recurring pattern. Empires that were influential, resilient, and yet permanently incomplete. They did not fail because they misunderstood the Mediterranean. They failed because they believed its advantages were unlimited. This belief was subtle. It did not announce itself as arrogance. It appeared as confidence. As long as systems worked, their limits felt theoretical. Only when strain accumulated did those limits become visible. And by then, adjustment was difficult. This is how power often encounters its boundaries, not through sudden resistance, but through slow misalignment between belief and structure. The Mediterranean offers a case study in this dynamic. It shows how environments shape authority not just by enabling it, but by constraining its form. It reveals that power is never independent of the space it occupies, and that space does not negotiate. This brings the inquiry inward. Why do societies consistently mistake favorable conditions for permanent ones? Why does success make limits harder to see? Why does power interpret endurance as confirmation rather than contingency? Perhaps because acknowledging limits feels like weakness. Yet limits exist, regardless of acknowledgement. The Mediterranean did not punish ambition. It absorbed it. It allowed power to stretch until it became thin. The result was not immediate collapse, but gradual redistribution. Influence shifted, centers multiplied, authority learned to share space, or it receded. The sea remained. Empires passed through it. This is the quiet lesson embedded in its history. Not that power should not expand, but that expansion always carries the shape of its environment within it. The Mediterranean created empires by enabling connection. It limited them by refusing uniformity. Between those two forces, history unfolded, and it continues to unfold wherever power mistakes access for ownership and movement for mastery. What remains is not a conclusion, but a tension. A reminder that the spaces that elevate authority also define how it must eventually change. The Mediterranean never promised permanence. It only offered possibility. And possibility, once realized, always encounters its edge. Explore more quiet questions about history and meaning on Timeless Questions.